Greetings everyone and welcome in today's PECB webinar. My name is Gezim and I am the Portfolio Manager for IT Security at PECB. Today we will discuss about the webinar topic, Improve Cybersecurity Posture by using ISO 27032. The webinar will be presented by Adewale Obadare, who is a first-generation and visionary cyberpreneur. He is a PECB certified trainer, fellow chartered information technology professional, the first licensed penetration tester in Nigeria, second COVID-5 assessor in Africa, and PCI DSS QSNA. He is also an alumnus of Harvard Business School and MIT Sloan School of Management Executive Education. I hope this webinar will help you understand the importance of cybersecurity. If you have any question, you can write them at any time in question box in the right-hand control panel, or you can use the option to raise your hand and we will answer to all of them. Please, Adewale, you may proceed with the presentation.
Okay, all right. Good afternoon, everyone. First and foremost, I would like to thank you all for joining the webinar. As introduced by Gezim, my name is Obadare Peter Adewale in full. I'm actually the co-founder and the CEO of a multi-award-winning cybersecurity and GRC advisory company called Digital Encode in Lagos, Nigeria, West Africa. Presently, I have up to 36 up-to-date professional certifications that actually cut across cybersecurity, governance, risk. That's by the way of introduction. Well, today I'll be speaking improve cybersecurity posture by using ISO/IEC 27032 2000. The aim of this webinar is to create a situational awareness that will ensure that every stakeholder in the cyberspace experience an improvement in the cybersecurity posture, by the use of IEC 27032. The agenda for my presentation is as follows. The agenda is, of course, understanding the nature of cyberspace and cybersecurity. Then we go further to explore the ecosystem, the roles and responsibilities. Then we end by discussing how to achieve cyber resilience through implementing both defensive resilience and security strategy control using ISO IEC 27032. Everyone with me that there is no doubt that the subject of cybersecurity is in the front burner discussion globally, because if you're privileged to the first U.S. presidential election debate, the very last question that was asked, that was posed to the presidential candidate, a clear-cut strategy on cybersecurity. This informs to say that the subject of cybersecurity is actually an important subject globally. I'd like to start with this quotation that I like. It's a quotation by the guy called Sun Tzu, and it says that if you know your enemies and you know yourself, you will not be impaired in hundreds of battles. But if you do not know your enemies but do know yourself, you will win one and lose one. If you do know your enemies, know yourself, you will be impaired in every battle. So what that means is, what I've seen as a cybersecurity professional is the challenge with cybersecurity is most of actually do know ourselves, but we do not know the enemy, which is the hackers, the cyber criminals that we're fighting against, because that's the situation of most organizations today. They actually know themselves, but they don't really know how the enemy is. And I believe that with the use of 27032 standard is going to give a structural approach to which an organization can properly that can actually achieve a good cybersecurity strategy for any organization or for any individual. Okay, I continue. Now, looking at the standard, the structure of the structure of the standard, what is the content like? Just like any ISO standard, of course, the main section actually focus. You have clause 6 to clause 13. The overview, stakeholders in cyberspace. Clause 8 dealt extensively with the assets in cyberspace, while clause 9 focused on the threat against the security in the cyberspace. Clause 10 focused on the rules of in cybersecurity, while in clause 11 you will be looking at guidelines for stakeholders. In clause 12, the cybersecurity controls, and then the last clause, which is clause 13, talks about the framework of information sharing and coordination. Now, for some of us that have actually been used to ISO International Standard Organization Standard, which is ISO, I'm sure you are familiar, well, you must have been familiar with the 2701. And the question that you might be asking yourself is, why 27032? Okay. The major difference between 2701, basically, both standards actually have different objectives, but they are closely related. Okay. While ISO 27032 mainly aim to provide a guide for cybersecurity through specific recommendation, okay, that is, 27032 is very prescriptive on cybersecurity controls, but ISO 2701 actually sets requirement to establish an information security management system, which is predicated on plan, do, check, and act, and a risk management approach. The focus of ISO 2701 is the organization and its ISMS, while ISO 27032, the environment, which we're going to be talking about today. Okay, and then of course, for ISO 2701 is applicable to both information and digital media assets. So it's end-to-end on information security protection. But ISO 27032 is only applicable to protection of information on digital media assets. You can get certification to ISO 27001, which is the 2013 version as of today, but for 27032 is actually not auditable. You can get certification to it as an organization, just like in the case of ISO 27001 2013 version. But I think it's actually this subject, it's important for us to look at the global recent cybersecurity incident so that we'll be able to see what has happened in the past and what is still happening globally in the world. In 2013, it target as actually hacked in December 2013. The network of target was breached, and that resulted in the loss of so many cardholder details of their customers. Now, looking at the anatomy of the target attack, it's very interesting to see that from end to end, you know, it initially starts from an attacker phishing a third-party contractor that leads to an attacker using a stolen credential to access a contractor port anatomy, and to get to the last part, which is the stolen data is restricted to FTP servers. You will be able to see in ISO 27032 all the stakeholders were actually involved. You have the consumer, you have the organization, which is private, and then of course you have the also the service provider. They were all involved in the attack, and which leads to over 40 million credit card details were stolen. Over 70 million customer record was stolen. That leads to an income of over almost $54 million to the cyber criminals. And then of course all the other figures like 150 million target initial response costs, Two suit executives were fired in Target, and then of course number of directors targeted by institutional shareholder service for outside claiming failed duties to shareholders. This incident actually caused Target a serious reputational damage, and then of course Target to recover in building consumer confidence back. And then of course series of attacks in June 4, 2015, we all wake up to see the US Office of Personnel Management attack, and so many attacks like the Bangladesh recently in March 2016, the Bangladesh Central Bank was hacked and almost $100 million were lost. 28, 2016, a ransomware actually attacked, MedStar Health Network offline, which compromised the data of all the all over 200 patients. And according to 2016 Global Risk, it's very clear that cyber attack is actually the #1 threat globally, aside from the initial terrorism. If you look at the ranking of the threat categories over the years, terrorism used to be the lead, but as of today, 2016, cyber and technology is actually in the #1 category. And then, of course, to prove it further, from the Business Continuity Institute report of 2016, cyber attack in the first category of what the organization is going to experience. Now, cyberspace. For the purpose of definition, the cyberspace, according to ISO 27032, can be described as a virtual environment which does not exist in physical form, but rather a complex environment or space resulting from the emergencies of the internet, plus the people, organization, and activities on all sorts of technology devices and networks. So it's not a physical world. It is a virtualized environment. You can only feel it. You can touch it. So it involves interconnected of people, technology, all together in the virtualized environment. Now, what is cybersecurity? The cybersecurity, in a very simple terms, is actually the security of the cyberspace, which involves the preservation of confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information in the cyberspace, which means cybersecurity relates to stakeholders should be taken to establish and maintain security in the cyberspace, according to ISO 27032. Now, what kind of, talking about types of cyber attacks, of course, there are various types of the attacks. You have the hacking, identity theft, phishing, distributed denial of service attack. In fact, just last week, the internet witnessed serious distributed denial of service attack that actually brought down a lot of websites globally. There's the malware attacks, the cyber stalking, spoofing, and so on and so forth, which is not limited to this. Of course, it's actually very important to the online criminal categories. You have the hackers, which, of course, they're very sophisticated, and then the phishers. They're not, well, I think they're not as sophisticated as the hackers, because what they do is what the phishing does most of the time is to capitalize on the human psychology to trick them by divulging their identity, but unlike the hackers that are actually very sophisticated and they can break into anything. Now, in the cyberspace, what are the components, the digital asset component? According to the ISO 27032 standard, we have different players. The stakeholders, which you have the consumers, which includes the individuals, the organizations, which could be public, and then providers in terms of internet service providers, the application service providers. Now, the assets of the space. It could be personal, it could be organizational. Now, in the personal, we have the physical assets and the virtual assets as well. And organizational could be same thing, which is could be physical asset and virtual asset. But then you need best practice, approach. If you adopt the use of the standard, okay, just like any other ISO standard, you can actually put all the controls that are well laid out in the standard to achieve a sound preventive, detective, and a reactive controls in place for your organization as an individual or as an organization. Now, of course, to just further explain what you have as an asset, of course, for the purpose of buttressing the point, of course, you have the software. You have the software, which involves applications, operating systems, and other utilities. And then also you have the hardware, the physical component of the information assets. Of course, the data, which is very valuable, often the most valuable asset, possessed by either an individual or the organization. And of course, the people, which most of the time are the weakest link, and they are the greatest threat to security in any organization, even in the cyberspace. Now, it's very important to state that no matter what you think about cyberspace, any system can actually be digitally invaded. Any system. If there is an issue with any of these following factors, from our own research from Digital Encode, we believe that any system, whatever it is, wherever it is, anywhere all over the world in the cyberspace, if there's a problem with the architecture, if there's a problem with design, if there's a problem with implementation, and then of course, if there's a problem with operation. So what that means is actually very important for any individual organization to ensure that before you put anything in the cyberspace, you need to ensure it's a very robust architecture, a good design, and then a well-implemented strategy, and then of course the operation must be right. Now, looking at the standard, how do you ensure a good, robust cybersecurity strategy? How do you achieve a good defense in-depth using the standard? Okay, if you look, like I said from the beginning, if you look at the standard from clause 6 to clause 13, clearly from clause 11 to 12 actually dealt extensively talking about all the controls that you can put in place as an organization to improve your posture, to ensure that you're not an object of attack on the internet. So what that means is, if you look at from clause 12.2, there are specific controls in the standard that are actually very prescriptive towards application level control. And what I've done is to highlight some of those controls. And I'm sure if you get by the standard, you can actually get most of the controls in the standard. But I'll just go through the highlights. The very first is to ensure at the application level, you need to ensure that there's a display of short notices which provide clear, concise, one-page summary. In essence, you need to have a sound process of displaying of short notices. The next thing is you need to ensure secure handling of session for web applications. And of course, proper input validation. Of course, if you look at the OWASP top 10, OWASP is actually the Open Web Security Application Project. It's actually a methodology for securing web application. The very first vulnerability there is the SQL injection. And today, most internet-facing application actually, if has these vulnerabilities if it is not properly tested before you put your application online. So in essence, what the standard is saying is, before you have any application online, you need to ensure that there is proper way of validating your input and to ensure that you're not vulnerable to SQL injection. And also, the next point to achieve a good application level control is to ensure secure PG scripting to prevent common attacks such as cross-site scripting. Code review is very, very important that you need to do to ensure that there are no weaknesses within your codes. And then, of course, the last is the service authentication. Those are the controls for application level controls. Then, of course, for clause 12.3, talked about server protection. You know, at the server end, what you need to do, ensure that you configure your servers with standard baseline security configuration guide. You know, because what you've seen in most organizations in today's organization is without any proper baseline, which introduce a lot of, you know, default account setup and introduce a lot of vulnerabilities within the system. So what this is saying is, before you put up your servers, you need to have a standard configuration guide, you know, for whatever platform, be it a Unix platform, be it a Windows platform, and, you know, for your administrators to follow. And then, of course, you need to implement a system to test and deploy security updates, you know, because a system is as good as the latest security update on that server, and ensure that the server operating system and application are up to date. Also, you should have a mechanism to monitor the security performance of the server through regular review of the audit trails. It's actually very important. And then, of course, regularly review the security configuration standard. And then, from the server perspective, it is very important for you to run licensed anti-malicious software controls. It's not just to have any antivirus in place, but you need to ensure that the antivirus or any anti-malware that you have is actually licensed because of the regular update you need to get from the vendor. And then it is highly recommended that you need to have a sound vulnerability management system in place for online application. Okay, because there's actually a clear difference between just doing a scan than when you have a very sound vulnerability management system in place. Vulnerability assessment only involves scanning, which involves identifying the vulnerabilities. But when you have a vulnerability management, what you're going to achieve is to ensure that when you do a scan and you identify vulnerabilities, you need to ensure that those vulnerabilities that have been identified are properly closed, are properly remediated, so that you don't have a situation whereby the hackers or the cyber criminals exploit those vulnerabilities in the system. And then, of course, the end user controls, which is clause 12.4. It is recommended that you should use of supported operating system. You know, don't use, the users are expected not to use an operating system that has been declared end of life. Because what that means is, if your operating system has been declared end of life, there's no how you're going to get security updates, which makes your system on the internet vulnerable to attackers, and your system may actually be attacked and be joined to the botnet on the internet. Use the supported operating system. It means that you're going to be getting regular updates, security updates will be installed on your system, which make it almost impossible for hackers to get access to your system. And of course, the same thing, just like the servers, you need antivirus and anti-spyware solutions and tools on your system end user controls. Because a lot of end users has been, if you recall, in the case of the target hacking incident, the very first thing that happened was the customer was phished. So that's why it's actually recommended that you need to have a mechanism or tools in place to enable script blockers, you know, that will quickly flag if you have received a phishing email or a phishing information. And then, of course, a good practice is to enable a personal firewall and host intrusion prevention system, and then of course update notifications. Now, like we said, that human beings are the weakest link in the value chain when it comes to the issue of cybersecurity. So the standard also in the clause 12.5 actually address the issue of the human factor, because like there is this popular saying that there is no patch management, patch for human stupidity. But what you need to do, according to the clause 12.5, it's actually control against social engineering. What you need to do to put in place is to have an appropriate policy to ensure that, and when you have the policies have to be communicated to the users of the organization, and hand to hand. And then of course, you need to ensure that information are properly classified. What is public, what is confidential, all of those, has to be properly defined for the users. And the best way you can prepare the human factor is to ensure that you have regular awareness. You actually ensure they go through an awareness test to ensure that they really understand scenarios whereby an awareness is done, and then the people involved does not really actually understand what they need to do until after the awareness test, and we discovered that as simple as what is confidentiality, what is integrity, they couldn't even answer. So the awareness test ensure that you were able to drive your point home to really, the feedback mechanism for you to really know that the users or the people involved have actually really have a proper understanding of what you have actually put them through during the awareness. Now, from our perspective at Digital Encode, we actually believe that cybersecurity is actually it's both an art and a science. In as much that if you go through the standard, which is the ISO 27032, end to end from clause 6 to 13, like a guideline. There are steps to step by steps on what you need to do as an individual, as a customer, as a consumer, as an organization, But then the reality is there is no hard and fast rule or universally accepted solution. What it requires, cybersecurity requires knowledge and experience of systems and goals to build a solution that best fits your organization. And then, of course, from science perspective, if you look at all the controls that has been highly recommended from the standard, is going to help you to ensure that your organization or you as an individual have what to put in place to ensure a good defensive strategy, a good resilience and detection strategy as well. And then, of course, when looking at it from the social science perspective, people are very critical component in the organization and in the security of the organization. Security must consider and address the human factor, and the only way that human factor can be addressed is actually through training and continuous awareness. That's the only way your users or the consumer will not be able to fall for, say for instance, a phishing email, or can be hacked through social engineering. Okay, so I would like to round up by saying that it's actually very possible to integrate your ISO 27032 with your, if you are an organization that has implemented ISO 2701, I think it's actually very interesting to see one of will help what you can to the cyberspace. So the ISO 2701 becomes the best if you already have an ISMS in place. But peradventure, if you're an institution that you have not, you don't currently have an ISO 2701, I think the best way to start is actually to start with the ISO 27032 if you're doing internet business. Because it's going to, it's very focused just on cybersecurity, unlike the ISMS. If that means if you currently have not implemented ISMS, but if you have implemented an ISMS, I will I encourage you and advise you to take a look at the standard. Okay, and purchase one and see what look at your environment in terms of your cyberspace. Come on, and not so this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adevala, for the presentation. We want to inform you that PCB provides training and certification services for ISO 27032 Lead Cybersecurity Manager. This is a 5-day intensive course and enables the participants to develop the knowledge and competencies needed to support an organization in implementing and managing cybersecurity program based on ISO 27032 and the NIST cybersecurity framework. The exam and the certification fees are included in the training price, and also participation certificate will be issued to all participants. For more information, please visit our website pcb.com on the training section, and you will have all the information needed. So we will go ahead with the question that we have. The first question is, could small companies implement cybersecurity?
Okay. Yeah, I think for hello.
Yes. Did you hear the question, Adevala?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. You can respond to that.
Okay. All right. For small medium-sized organization, just like I said, of course, I was trying to rush during the course of the presentation. That the best way to start.
Which part, guys?
To secure your organization assets.
Okay, due to technical issues that we are facing now, we will take care to respond to all the questions via email.
On the internet, it's a good way to start. It's is actually if you can 2701. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, we are facing some technical issues. So can you please begin once again with that response to could small companies implement cybersecurity? Because the line
Okay.
was
What
not
I
pretty clear.
said,
Okay.
it's okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. So just go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So, as I said, the, for small, medium size organization can actually easily adopt ISO to ISO 27032.
Okay, we apologize for the technical issues that we have faced today. As I said, we will take care to respond to all the questions via email. So thank you, Adeval, for sharing this highly informative presentation, and also want to thank all the attendees for joining us live today. I strongly hope you had a chance to learn new things today, and I suggest you to take time and register for our future webinars that we will be hosting. And next Wednesday we will host a webinar topic which is called Embracing Cybersecurity and Cloud Computing. You can also take time and visit our website, pcb.com, on the webinar section to register for our future webinars. Thank you once again and hope to meet you on our future webinars.